loved you louder than your silence could ignore. Poured my heart out, but you always wanted more. I reached for you with every word I didn't say. You turned away, but I stayed anyway.
You said love should feel like peace, like something calm and slow. But I was thunder in your sky, too wild to ever hold.
You like love that doesn't ache, love that doesn't burn. But baby, I was fire, and all I did was learn.
I gave you all my flaws, not just the light. You wanted quiet, I gave you the fight.
I loved you louder than your doubts could drown me out. I said forever even when you're filled with doubt. While you pulled back, I leaned in strong and proud. I loved you louder when you couldn't say it out loud, and I'd do it all again somehow.
I traced the way you changed the subject when it hurt. Try to love the quiet in you, even when it burned. I gave you space, I gave you time, I gave you truth, but nothing ever felt like enough for you.
I didn't ask for perfect, just your real. But you kept hiding what you didn't want to feel.
I loved you louder than the ghost you wouldn't name. I stayed when everything in me begged to walk away. You barely whispered, but I sang us through the doubt. I loved you louder when you could love me out loud. Maybe I was too much, maybe you were too small. Maybe real love's not quiet, maybe I gave it all. I don't regret the way I stood in every storm. I just wish you knew what my love was fighting for. 'Cause I loved you louder than the silence you became. Even as you faded, I still whispered your name. I loved you deeper, with a heart you never found. And now I'm loving me just as loud. I loved you louder, but now I know real love should go both ways, and that's not so.
You needed space, so I gave you skies. Held back tears to keep your peace alive. You turned away, but I still stood near. Loved you so loud you refused to hear. You kissed like someone halfway gone. Spoken echoes, then moved on. I held the weight of words you never said. Tried to read the silence instead. But love's not meant to hide behind closed doors. I gave it all, and then I gave some more. I loved you louder than the silence in your chest. Every heartbeat, every whisper, every breath. I called your name when the world shut us out. While you stayed quiet, I was screaming love out loud. I knew louder for you now. You wanted something soft, something light, but I came in blazing with no place to hide. You said I fell too deep, too fast, but I was building something meant to last. I wasn't asking for perfection, just the truth, but even honesty scared the heart in you. I loved you louder than the doubts that try to fake. Even when you shut me out, I didn't break. I lived follow you, watered it down. But love like mine was never meant to drown. I loved you louder. You'd never volume around. You'll remember it in quiet rooms, my voice still calling after you. No regrets, just lessons learned. Loving loud means you might get hurt, but I would do it all again to feel it real, not pretend. Loved you louder than the fear inside your soul. I took the hits and still I wouldn't let you go. Now I see you weren't ready for that sound, but I won't turn down the love. I finally found I loved you louder, and now I'm learning to love me out loud. So if I was too much, maybe you were too quiet, but I'll never regret loving in riot. I loved you louder than the silence in your sleep. I sang your name through shadows when the night refused to speak. You held my hand but kept your heart behind the door. I gave you pages, but you left them on the floor. I traced your pain like it was mine to understand. I stood beside you even when you wouldn't stand. You said love should feel like peace, like quiet rain. But I was light and I was fire, not ashamed. I loved you louder than the walls we built in fear. Said it boldly every day so you could hear. When you whispered maybe, I shouted forever. Through the doubt, through the storm, I let go never. I loved you louder, louder than you ever knew. You kissed me soft but kept your heart just out of reach. I learned your silence like a language no one speaks. But every almost still deserved a melody. So I wrote our love in chords you wouldn't sing with me. I didn't need a perfect love, just something true. And I gave the loudest parts of me to you. I loved you louder than the doubts inside your head. Every heartbeat, every tear I never said. While you pulled away, I only pulled in closer. You faded slow. I turned the volume over. I loved you louder, louder. it's raw, but I gave it to you honest, gave it all. And if you couldn't hear me then, maybe now you will. 'Cause I loved you louder than the quiet ever could. Built a future in the dark and called it good. If loving you is wrong for beaver, then I'll love like that and get all the greater. I loved you loud, but now I'm learning to love me louder too. I loved you louder, louder than goodbye, but love that's real won't never have to try to hide. I used to whisper in the dark, afraid of how you take my heart. But silence couldn't hold me long. You pulled the truth out with your arms. Every beat I tried to hide was screaming louder deep inside. I thought love should be quiet and kind, but you changed my mind. I loved you louder than the storm, through every fight, through every war. Even when the world went colder, I held you closer. I loved you bolder. I shouted your name through the rain and the doubt. Even when you couldn't hear me out, I loved you louder. I loved you louder. You said love's a slow, soft burn, but I kept crashing, never learned. Wrote our story on city walls, even when you stopped taking calls. And though you tried to run away, my heart was louder, louder every day. I swore I love without regret, and I'm not finished yet. I loved you louder than goodbye, over the echoes of your quiet lies. Even when you turned to shadows, I followed fearless through the hollows, screaming your name when the silence got proud. Even when you never turned around, I loved you louder. I loved you louder. I loved you louder. No regrets for the noise I made. It was real, not a masquerade. You may forget, but I remember every heartbeat, every ember. I loved you louder than the stars, louder than the wounds and scars. Even if you'll never feel it, no, I meant it every minute. And if love was a voice, I was crying it out. Even when you were filled with doubt, I loved you louder. I loved you louder. I loved you louder. So if you hear a name in the wind one night, that's me, still loving you right. I loved you louder than the silence in your stare. I scream forever while you whisper you don't care. Held on tighter when your hands began to slip. for us, and every tear that touched my lips. You didn't hear the way I broke behind my smile, but I was singing us a love song all the while. I loved you louder than your doubts could drown me out. Every heartbeat was a battle, every kiss a shout. I gave you echoes of a truth you never found. While you faded, I stayed and screamed our love out loud. I loved you louder when the world turned down the sun. I memorized the way your silence spelled goodbye, but I kept dancing in the static of your lies. You said nothing, but your nothing still cut deep. I was wide awake while you fell back asleep. And even when the night would steal your flame, I kept calling out your name and lit my pain. I loved you louder than your fear could block me out. Built a home on every maybe, every doubt. I kept on hoping in the shadow of your brow. While you faded, I stayed and screamed our love out loud. I loved you loud, even when you told me down. I shouted love and thunder, but you ran from every storm. You wanted quiet comfort, but I was passion in its rawest form. I'm not sorry that I felt too much too true, 'cause I was always full volume for you. I loved you louder than the noise inside your head. Every I love you I meant, and every tear I bled. You'll hear my voice when you lie your own down. While you faded, I stayed and screamed our love out loud. I loved you louder. Now I'm learning how to love me out loud. I loved you louder than the fears you held inside. Told you with my heartbeat when your words just tried to hide. I kissed you in the silence, begged the quiet not to stay. I loved you louder every time you looked away.
You said love should feel like stillness, like a calm and steady sea. But I was waves, I was wildfire, and you never wanted me to be. I wasn't soft like every version you believed love had to be, but I was true. I was all in, even when you stopped choosing me.
I didn't whisper love, I screamed it through the pain. We heard the echoes, but you turned from the refrain. I loved you louder than the nights you turned away. Built a future in my voice where yours to fade. Every I love you I gave was a vow. While you whispered goodbye, I was shouting out I loved you louder. Somehow that was too much for you now. You wanted easy, not the fight love sometimes brings. But I showed up with both my hands and all the broken things. I wasn't perfect, but I stayed even when you slipped. You held back, I leaned in with every word and kiss. And when silence filled the space between our names, I filled it with my heart, you left me with the blame. I loved you louder than the quiet you became. Wrote forever in a song you left unnamed. When you doubted us, I doubled down. While you faded, I found new strength somehow. I loved you louder, and maybe that's what broke me down. I loved you louder than the fear you wouldn't face. I gave you more than time could ever erase. And though we broke beneath the weight somehow, I won't regret it, no. I know that and now I loved you louder, and now I'm learning to love me just as loud. I loved you louder, I still do somehow, but love should echo in both hearts, not just mine, out loud.